Most people think walking is too gentle to matter, too slow, too easy, almost insulting if you're serious about your health. We've been trained to believe that a healthy heart comes from effort. Push harder, sweat more, raise the heart rate, and if you're only walking, it feels like you're not really doing anything at all. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people never stop to consider. Your heart doesn't struggle because you didn't try hard enough. It struggles because it's been forced to operate day after day inside the wrong biological environment. If time could pause for a moment and we could look inside your chest right now, the important question wouldn't be, is your heart strong? It would be, is your heart calm or quietly overworked? Because your heart is not the main issue, the system surrounding it is. Think of your heart as a pump, a highly intelligent one. It adjusts instantly to what your body asks of it. But a pump doesn't decide how hard it works on its own. It responds to resistance. And most of that resistance doesn't come from effort. It comes from stiff, poorly responsive blood vessels. Modern life creates this problem silently. Long hours sitting, irregular movement, constant low-level stress. No pain, no warning signs, nothing dramatic enough to notice. So your blood vessels slowly lose flexibility. They stop opening and relaxing when they should, and your heart compensates, beat by beat, pushing harder just to keep things moving. That's why so many people feel fine until they don't. And this is where walking completely changes the story. Walking doesn't challenge your heart the way intense exercise does. It doesn't shock the system. It doesn't trigger survival mode. Instead, it retrains the environment your heart has to live in. As you walk, blood flow increases smoothly. Your vessels sense that flow and respond by becoming more cooperative. Pressure regulation improves. The heart doesn't need to shout to be heard anymore. What surprises many people is how quickly this begins to happen. Not after months, not after perfect routines, but within minutes of steady movement. And the even bigger surprise? These benefits don't require extreme step counts. They don't demand intensity or exhaustion. They start at levels of movement most people dismiss as not enough, which tells us something important about human biology. Your body is not waiting for punishment. It's waiting for signals that say, this environment is safe, predictable, and worth adapting to. In this video, we're not going to talk about motivation. We're not going to sell discipline or willpower. We're going to look at walking the way a biological systems architect would, not as exercise, not as a habit, but as a signal, a quiet, repeatable signal that reduces internal resistance, reshapes the cardiovascular environment, and allows your heart to do its job without living in constant strain. To understand why walking works, we need to stop thinking about effort and start looking at the biological switch that actually controls the system. For walking, that switch isn't motivation, it isn't calories, and it isn't even heart rate. The central switch is vascular behavior, how your blood vessels respond to flow, pressure, and repetition. Your blood vessels aren't passive pipes. They're living tissue. They sense how blood moves through them, and they adjust accordingly. When movement is rare and unpredictable, blood flow is sluggish and uneven. The vessels stay tense. They don't open when they should. Resistance quietly increases. And when resistance increases, your heart has only one option. It pushes harder. That's how the system gets stuck. Not because the heart is weak, but because the environment around it keeps signaling danger. Now, here's the part most people miss. When you start walking, even gently, your muscles ask for a little more oxygen. Not urgently, not dramatically, just enough. That small request triggers a cascade. Blood flow increases smoothly. The inner lining of your vessels senses that movement, and in response, it releases signals that tell the vessel walls to relax. This is the moment the system begins to shift, not into stress, but into cooperation. As vessels relax and widen slightly, pressure drops, resistance decreases, and the heart no longer needs to force blood through tight spaces. This is why walking often lowers blood pressure over time, even though heart rate rises slightly while you're moving. It's not a contradiction. It's mechanics. Wider pathways mean less force is required, and something else happens at the same time. Your breathing settles into a steady rhythm. Deeper inhales, fuller exhales. That rhythm feeds back into your nervous system. It gently nudges you away from constant alert mode and toward a state where regulation becomes possible. This is why walking doesn't just affect the heart. It changes how the entire cardiovascular system behaves under load. Now, let's zoom out. Walking isn't powerful because of one walk. It's powerful because of repetition. Each walk is like running clean water through a pipe. Nothing dramatic happens the first time, but over days and weeks, sediment doesn't get a chance to settle. Your vessels relearn how to open and close properly. Your heart relearns how to pump efficiently instead of urgently. Your system stops treating small demands as emergencies. This is where the modern health mindset goes wrong. People focus on individual actions. One workout, one hard session, one burst of effort. But biology doesn't adapt to events. It adapts to environments, and walking works because it creates an environment your body can trust. Predictable, repeatable, non-threatening. Without that environment, no amount of effort frees the system. With it, the system begins to reorganize itself quietly. That's the real mechanism. Not discipline, not suffering, but the steady removal of internal resistance. Now, let's redesign the logic. Most health advice fails because it asks people to do more instead of asking the body to feel safer. Walking works because it's an asymmetric lever, a small input, a system-level response. When you walk regularly, you're not trying to force adaptation. You're removing friction. The cardiovascular system is built to adjust when the cost of adjustment is low. Walking sits right in that sweet spot. It's gentle enough not to trigger stress hormones, yet consistent enough to retrain blood flow, vessel signaling, and heart efficiency over time. That's why the biggest gains don't come from perfection. They come from moving out of near stillness. For someone who's mostly sedentary, the difference between almost nothing and a modest amount of walking is biologically enormous. The system doesn't ask, "Did you hit a target?" It asks, "Is this environment changing in a direction I can trust?" And once the answer becomes yes, adaptation starts quietly. This is also where the obsession with extremes causes damage. People try to jump straight to intensity, long sessions, high effort, irregular bursts. From a biological perspective, that creates noise, not rhythm. Your heart and vessels don't need to be shocked. They need to be re-educated. Which brings us to the core principle. In human biology, rhythm matters more than intensity. A steady signal repeated over time is more powerful than a strong signal delivered inconsistently. Walking creates rhythm. The same movement, similar pace. Predictable demand. That predictability tells your nervous system there's no emergency here. And when the nervous system relaxes its grip, the cardiovascular system can finally recalibrate. This is why repeated walking can lower resting heart rate over time. Why recovery becomes faster after stress. Why the body stops reacting to mild effort as a threat. Not because you became tougher, but because the system became smarter. Now here's the part many people misread. Progress doesn't announce itself through dramatic changes. It shows up internally first. You might notice your breathing settles faster. Your pulse calms down more quickly after climbing stairs. Your head feels clearer instead of foggy. You don't feel wiped out by movement that used to feel heavy. These are not nice side effects. They are primary signals. They tell you the internal environment is shifting, that resistance is dropping, that the heart no longer has to compensate as aggressively. If you only watch the scale or chase numbers on a tracker, you miss the real transformation. Biology always changes from the inside out, which leads us to the most important reframing of all. Your body does not need to be pushed into health. It needs to be placed into the right signal system. Walking isn't a test of discipline. It's a conversation with your cardiovascular system. And when that conversation is calm, regular, and predictable, your heart responds exactly the way it was designed to. not with strain, but with efficiency, not with urgency, but with confidence. And that's the philosophy behind Healthy Explained. We don't sell motivation. We don't glorify punishment. We help you stop doing the things that quietly keep your biology stuck in survival mode. If this way of thinking feels different, that's because it is. And if you want to keep learning how to build a body that works with you, not against you, you're welcome to stay. Let's bring this together. By now, it should be clear that walking was never about effort. It was never about hitting a number, and it was never about proving discipline. Walking works because it places your body inside a different signal system, the system where movement is regular instead of chaotic, where demand is predictable instead of threatening, where the cardiovascular system is allowed to operate without constant resistance. When that signal system is in place, your heart doesn't need to be pushed. It adapts on its own. Blood vessels regain flexibility. Pressure becomes easier to regulate. The heart pumps with less effort. Not because it got stronger, but because it no longer has to fight the environment around it. This is why the earliest changes aren't dramatic. They're subtle. You breathe easier. Your pulse settles faster after stress. Movement stops feeling like a warning signal. Your body no longer treats everyday effort as an emergency. These are not small wins. They are signs that the system is unlocking. And this is the mistake most people make. They wait for visible proof before trusting the process. They chase numbers. They push harder when the body is already overloaded. But biology doesn't respond to force. It responds to context. Your body isn't lazy. It isn't broken. It isn't refusing to cooperate. It's responding precisely to the signals it receives every day. Healthy Explained exists to change those signals, not with motivation, not with discipline, and not with extremes, but by helping you remove the quiet pressures that keep your biology stuck in survival mode. When the environment changes, the system follows. If this way of thinking resonates, you're not behind. You're just starting to listen to your body in a different language. And if you want to keep learning how to design health that works with human biology, not against it, you're welcome to stay with us.